team, welcome to episode 131 of Transition Talk, where we talk about dental transitions and how to navigate the sometimes messy path to practice ownership. If you haven't listened to episode 130 yet, I highly suggest you go back and do so. This episode is a continuation of episode 130 and the stories of doctors Dan and Kevin Butterman. To summarize, they are the doctors of Butterman Dental in Centennial, Colorado. Dr. Dan has been practicing for more than 30 years and recently brought on his son, Dr. Kevin, as his associate in 2024. In this episode, we talked about their future partnership as Dr. Kevin will buy into a practice in the future. We had so much good stuff. We broke it into two for you. So I hope you enjoy and continue to gather some takeaways from their story. Well, I'd love to shift and talk about transition. It sounds like, Kevin, you've always known you're going to go straight to dad's practice. I'm sure that kind of the thought of partnership probably always been in the back of each of your minds. Was there ever a time, Kevin, where you were like, I don't know if I want to own, or Dan, that was like, I don't know if I want a partnership. Maybe I'll just sell when I'm ready to be done and kind of give it fully. Was the partnership ever an option or something you guys talked about or thought about differently than you do today?
Well, I'll let Kevin answer in a second, but from my perspective, it was sort of a given. I mean, it was like the most exciting thing for me was being able to build this up, bring Kevin in, and then have him start to share and move into it and move into ownership. And then eventually I would step away and he would make all the decisions, bring in who he needs, and he would run the show. So from my perspective, this is actually really fun that we're going to go through this, because there's a lot of questions probably that you're going to ask that Kevin and I might not have actually talked through. So like this might turn a little confrontational. It might go in the wrong direction, but that's fun and exciting, right? So this is the true reality show right now. So yeah, so that was my intent.
Kevin?
Selfishly for me, I'm lucky that my grandpa, his dad, made the transition process a horrible thing for him because it's made him realize what not to do. And so anytime we've talked about the transition process, he's always been like, I'm just going to hand the keys to you and give me $1. That's all I ask.
So in fairness, well, that was fun to say that out loud. And as like, I won't say it as a joke, and as much as I would love to do that, like the problem that brings into play, because just to be clear, my dad saw me as his retirement plan.
Yeah.
And that's just not the way that I've structured things in my life. That's not the intent. But I've got 2 other kids, and we need to do things appropriately. We need to do things fairly, and it needs to be a process that we go through to do this.
Yeah. And I think that's what our advice is too, right? Even if there is a certain family relationship where an uncle wants to give his nephew a discount or whatever it might be, understanding what the value is today of what you come into, right? What would this go for if I was selling it in the open market is important for a multitude of reasons, right? To understand, Kevin, from your perspective or from a new associate or new owners, this is what I'm buying into and this is what this looks like. But then also from more of like an estate planning purpose, right? Like what happened here versus my other kids. And that's something that sometimes does get lost in the mix there. So yeah, I think that's really important. From a ownership perspective, clearly there's a million ways to make a partnership. There's a million ways to like make that happen. Have you guys talked about time frame? Have you talked about like certain goals that you each want to have met, production or otherwise, that will trigger kind of, hey, it's time?
You know, that's a great question. And one of the things that we focused on, just to even step it back a little bit, you know, there's some metrics and KPIs that we have to understand on many areas. One is even, should you bring in an associate?
Yep.
I mean, look, those are conversations that we had to have early on, were the things that I need to do to prepare the practice to have a second doctor. As far as when to transition over ownership, one of the things that we're doing currently, we just actually yesterday signed a contract to remodel the office. So we're putting a lot of money into, while the space is quite nice, where I own the building that we're in, so we're redeveloping it and doing a lot with that. But once that's done, I think that the very first thing that we want to understand is, what is the value of the practice today? Because it's important to know what it is today before Kevin works for the next 5 years building up the practice and putting a lot into it. So we do intend to get a valuation of the practice as soon as the remodel's done. So we at least have a baseline. We know where we're at with things. I personally am not on a timeline where it's like, Kevin, you have X number of years before you need to start buying into it. But I think we're both motivated just from the excitement of the ownership piece of it. So we do want to do it properly. When I say properly, I mean have a real structure and go through a formal process of what should this look like, and having all the discussions so that things are fair and aren't just handshake deals. That's really important.
Kevin, anything to add there?
In terms of transition, with the little conversations that we've had. The only big thing that I care about is it's not just, all right, here's the keys, I'm out. I mean, big reason why I went into dentistry was to work with this guy every day. And so I'd rather it be more of a transition rather than a deal and he's gone, because it's so fun being able to work with him. So I like the idea of a transition. He's still here for a lot longer, even though he's old.
And to be fair to Kevin, it's funny as we talk about the mix in procedures and such that each of us are doing. He has turned into the breadwinner in the family as far as the practice is concerned, just because I'm a little bit different in that I've got multiple roles. While I still practice clinical dentistry, I still teach for Spear Education and CDOCs, and then I'm also chief dental officer, which means that I'm on 1,000 calls a day, and I've got a lot of administrative, and I'm busy doing a lot of other things as well. So it's really important that my time with Kevin is a little bit watered down from the clinical side. So I want to make sure that Kevin isn't just prepared clinically, it's from that leadership time as well. And it's important that when he does take over and he steps in as owner, which is different than partner, but stepping in as owner means that he's got to be ready on all levels. And it's going to take some time to figure out, do both of us feel like he's in a position to be able to make all of those decisions and be comfortable with all of those decisions without having support and backup for that?
Yeah, 100%. You said this earlier in the first step, and we've done podcast episodes, and there's a whole slew of things to consider before you bring someone on as an associate. That same thing is true before you let them buy in, right? And there has to be, when you buy in, it's not just here's your share of profits and now we're partners. It should be a sharing of responsibilities and a sharing of administrative tasks. And it sounds like, and I would imagine just from our short time together, that there will be a transition of those as you learn, as you kind of now get your feet under you this year and next year, being able to be seen as a leader in the firm, being able to take over payroll and, certain things that kind of give you an insight to the juggling of responsibilities that come with ownership, because there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's so important. And I love that you mentioned that, because I do think that that's something that sometimes in the transition process gets a little lost, right? We are so focused on value and so focused on all these other pieces that the actual, how are we going to function together as partners? And what are you really good at? And what am I really good at? And how are we going to kind of do the tango as owners together in this practice is an important conversation to have from the moment you're going to be partners until that actual buy-in happens. Just regular conversations about that are important.
Look, dentistry is that field where sometimes you absolutely love it and things go really well, and sometimes you absolutely hate it and you think you're the worst in the world. Business is that way as well. And while a lot of people made the decision that they wanted to be dentists, sometimes you forget that being a dentist sometimes also means being a business owner, and business is much the same way. Dentistry's tough because you're the CEO, and it's funny being on the side of Spear Education now. This is a true corporate structure where we have a CEO, we have a CFO, we have a chief revenue officer, we have head of marketing. And in a dental practice, you're the CEO, but you wear all the hats. Mm-hmm. And that's a really difficult transition to be responsible for so many things, where most other corporations, most other companies have entire divisions and departments to be able to handle that. And as the CEO, you set the course and direction, but you've got others to actually do the mechanics of it. As the dentist owner, you're doing everything. And that's why, it's important, because especially with Kevin, as he's graduated, I want his primary focus to be on building his hand skills and confidence and patient communication. And that's just going to take some time. If we pressured and put a 2-year limit that now you've got to start buying in, well, maybe it needs a little bit longer than that. Or maybe he's going to be ready before 2 years. And maybe this is going to be the time where he wants to start taking over more of those administrative pieces. And so it's a lot. It's a lot to be able to learn all the things that you need to do to be a dentist. But then on top of it, being a small business owner, sometimes you need help with that and you need proper support, or it can be a failure.
100%. Yeah. And I think that is coming to terms with that and figuring that out is a big piece of it. And I'm sure anyone who's listening, if you have an associate, your associate is going to be different than Kevin, right? And Kevin is different from someone else, right? Everyone's going to have their own, they're coming to the table with their own skill set, but then how quickly they're going to get up to speed in these various areas that will make them a good partner is going to vary. And so I fully agree with you. The time limits, you have to do this many years or you have to reach this, those can be challenging if they weren't tailored to the person specifically.
Exactly so. I mean, at the end of the day, though, it is a business. And the reason, while we certainly get into this because we want to help people, at the end of the day, we've got to make money as well. And the business has to survive, it has to grow. And so, certainly, those kind of conversations about when somebody comes in, and there needs to be some level of structure, that it can't be a total unknown. There has to be at least a framework that I expect to have Kevin as a 50% owner in approximately this amount of time. And that would be the goal. And at 50%, we become true partners and we make co-decisions, because that's an important part. Until you're a 50% owner, like, I feel like that pressure of being able to make those decisions, not just pressure, but also the reward of being able to do that, is a little bit watered down just because of the numbers. But I think that would be our primary goal, is to get to that 50-50. And let's see how that goes, because now Kevin gets to make all the decisions, but he has support and we get to kind of talk things through. So that's our goal. That's our primary focus, is getting to that level. Next, of course, then would be my transition out and what that full buyout looks like, and whether we're certainly going to have to transition other people in at that point to fill the gap.
Yeah. And I think that, you mentioned something earlier about having a complete process and really taking the time to go through each of the steps and not just make it a handshake deal. And I think that that is so beneficial, Kevin, for you, clearly as a buyer, but then you're going to have to bring someone else in, right? And having a roadmap of how to do it with someone who is not related to you, unless one of your brothers are going to go back to dental school, is, they're shaking their head no, is so, so important, because that partnership, even if you and your dad put together a partnership agreement and you do things maybe a little differently, that partnership agreement that you're going to put together is going to be fair and reasonable for you two as unrelated third parties, right? And so when you bring someone else in, you now have a roadmap of how to do that. And you're coming in the same way that you will bring your new partner in. And so there's not going to be any of that, potential like, oh, you got a better deal than I did and you are just a handshake and now I'm having to do this. Like, mentally, that would be hard for you to wrap your mind around as well. So I applaud you guys for doing it in that formulaic fashion, because I do think it's really helpful down the road and clearly for you today. From a preparation standpoint, it sounds like there's a lot of kind of learning and teaching that's happening and will be happening. Anything that you guys are doing, you're doing some construction, anything else you're doing as you prepare short or long term, sound like longer term, for this transition, saving money, what's going on in both of your worlds to make sure that when the time is right, that it can happen?
I mean, for me, the biggest point right now in preparation is education. Even though I've finished dental school, I didn't learn really about anything business related. So I just need to educate myself as much as I can to learn how to truly run a business, everything behind the scenes, because there's so much more than just coming and turning on the lights and starting the day off with patients that I need to learn about. And he's been blessed because
you're in my practice.
But because my mom, who actually runs the show,
yes,
he's been speaking like he runs the show, but there would be nothing without her. So I really need to sit down, and she needs to be my mentor, my sensei, and teach me because she is the greatest wealth of knowledge.
To add clarity, my wife and his mother is the office manager, and so it truly is a family
business.
Yes, very much.
Now, interesting question. I'm assuming when you retire, she probably will want to retire.
She's never left.
Kevin's like, she's never leaving. She's going to stay here. But that could change with Kevin coming in. But has that ever been a discussion and kind of what that looks like? I'm assuming when you retire, she's going to want to spend some time doing whatever you guys are doing when you retire.
It's really not just from that perspective, but in thinking about preparation, that kind of piece of it, the interesting thing that I didn't think about until recently is the psychological component, because I've been the practice owner, I've been the boss, I've been the CEO, I've been running the show for most of my life. When that stops, sometimes dentists, their entire identity is in being a dentist and what you're doing. So like that transition has to happen mentally and psychologically as well, not just the physical piece of it. And I think our situation certainly is a little bit unique in that, when I do less dentistry, it means that I'm going to do other things that I enjoy doing. And I would love to be able to do that with my wife if my son just lets her out of the office for 5 minutes so she can do that. So there will have to be a transition as well in the office manager position, and bringing on somebody that can transition into those skills as well. And of course, Kevin, as the leader of the practice, and I think that's a pressure that a lot of dentists have as well. You feel like, and it's not necessarily the case, but you feel like as the dentist, you need to know everybody's job. Mm-hmm. Like I have to know every detail of what the office manager does. I have to know every detail of what every employee does. The reality is that's just not possible. And it's adding too much pressure. what you have to be able to know is the scope of the job, and you have to know if this is the right person to be able to do it, and then trust your instincts moving forward. So part of that transition will be Kevin certainly understanding the basic roles of what my wife does as the office manager. Does he need to be an office manager? Probably not. That would be asking too much of anybody to take on every single role.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that office manager is such a critical role, a true office manager, which sounds like your wife, Mom, is. It really can hold the office together or it can take it apart. And so again, being a leader, listening to the team, having someone come in as they enter that position and hopefully have a transition period with your wife of like learning, that'll be important as well for the overall transition and probably for you feeling good to let, old man here out of the door and sell the final piece.
To be clear, though, every time I've talked about leadership, I was not referring to myself. I was referring to my wife, just to be 100% clear on that topic.
As a wife who has a husband, I understand. Okay, so you guys haven't talked a ton about the transition. Clearly, you're going to get evaluation, which will help kind of just put some perspective. So, because Kevin, I'm sure you probably haven't looked at a ton of evaluations. I'm sure you've educated yourself a little bit, but understanding kind of what the practice is valued at, how did you arrive at that, and really having some base knowledge. I believe, as someone who does valuations and talks to buyers all the time, there's a lot of fear in what that number is. You're coming out with some student debt, or at least a lot of people are. And so being able to add to that is always a little scary. So I think that what you're doing and kind of having a base valuation and learning about that now will really help you when it's time to actually purchase. But my question is, what concerns you about this future transition today, where you sit, knowing that like it might get resolved later, but right now, where are you? And then what are you most excited about? I would like that answer from both of you.
I think what concerns me is just the uncertainty of it all. Like, what will life look like when the time comes to transition into practice ownership? Who will be in the office working with us? Where will we be at in the stages in our life? What will my knowledge be in terms of dentistry and running a business? So just right now sitting here, it's just the uncertainty of it all, because there's so much that I need to learn to get to that point to be ready. But I'm also excited to just be the leader of it all. Like what we talked about at the beginning, I love how this practice is everyone's the same. Everyone speaks their mind. No one feels below anyone else. So just to be able to really push that forward through when I'm running this practice and making this a place that people want to work at and want to show up to work every day and love coming here is something that I look forward to creating.
What about you, Dan?
Really well said, by the way. And one of the things that I've always tried to focus on with our team, and that Kevin's kind of picked up on, is that our highest priority is having fun as a team. And if you love what you're doing as a team, your patients will benefit from that. Patients will see that, they'll feel that. When you're feeling your best and at your best, you give your best to your patients as well. And so we forget that sometimes. So I love that Kevin kind of focused in on that. My fears are somewhat of apparent, really, in that you never want your kids to struggle, right? You always want to take away the roadblocks if you can for your kids. But as I think about, and Kevin kind of pointed out, as I think about some of the roadblocks and challenges that I've been through, that's made me who I am. And those are critical parts of this. And sometimes in dentistry, you just need to get punched in the face once in a while. And you will from time to time. And when that happens, it's how you deal with it. And so for me, it's finding that right balance. I want Kevin to struggle. I want him to grow. I want him to learn. But at the same time, if I could remove a couple of those punches, that would be a win for me as well. And so I think it's going to be kind of finding that balance. And like the exciting part for me is just, again, and it's not just parents with kids, it's owner dentists with associates. We take a lot of pride in bringing people in and seeing them grow and seeing them develop. And it's even more so as a parent to a son. But really, that's what I want to see. I want to see that growth. I want to see him be able to implement, execute, and just blow it out of the water. I want him to be way better than I ever was.
Yeah, such an important point. What I find when I'm talking to established docs who are just bringing in their first associate or they're about to buy in, a lot of how you got where you are is making the mistake and learning and being like, well, I'm never going to do that again, right? Most of them, from my perspective, being business or managing people, you've clearly set an incredible foundation for Kevin where he already has processes that exist, but there will be new team members that will join. You will have, over the course of your career, you're going to have a bad apple or two, I'm sure, and figuring out how to deal with those and what there is. And clearly you have a great mentor and a great guy here who can kind of help you do that. But Dan, I totally agree with you that there's got to be a little bit of learning and growing, and that growing as an owner sometimes means we fall down and we pick ourselves ourselves back up and say, okay, how do I make sure that doesn't happen again? And so I love that point. From a next steps perspective, I think that what I would want each of you to kind of leave our listeners with as we wrap up today, I know I've taken a lot of your time and you're very busy, but from what I would like to leave from a transition standpoint, as you look forward and think about partnership, what are you most excited for in having a partner, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, somebody to collaborate with on the day-to-day. And it's different when you have an associate, while you may feel like you're collaborating, really sometimes the associate is going to be the yes man or yes woman because you're the boss. And so having a true partner to collaborate, to bounce things off of, right or wrong, to kind of have that. And it's not just from the clinical side of it, it's the business decision. Because look, while I've made a lot of business decisions and I've been fortunate enough that I've made successes than failures, we'll say it in that regard. Otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. But they have a different perspective. And I think that Kevin adds a different perspective that can help in a lot of areas. He's a fresh set of eyes, and he brings a lot of skills and he brings a lot of talent that it's just different than what I have. So I think the synergy that the two of us are going to create as partners is going to be something that is going to be far better than each of us could individually do.
I love that. Kevin, anything to add there?
Off note, just us together, not even as business partners is trouble. So
it is trouble. Yeah. So you would not, the thing that we can't even share, the things we do to screw with each other in practice in front of patients. My wife being the boss, it's amazing that we both actually haven't been fired at this point because we do like to have fun with each other because it is a stressful enough job.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to enjoy each other. And so, yeah, we've been fairly inappropriate from time to time.
She's like, boys, pull it together.
Yes.
Well, good. Well, you guys have so many things ahead of you: construction, growth, partnership. I'm actually really excited that we've done this at this point in your process. I would love to have you guys back on in a couple years. I'm sure opinions will be very similar, but you'll probably have some different new perspectives and different growth things that have happened. I'm just grateful that you spent your time with us. Bringing on an associate, talking about transition, even from the early stages, is a very stressful, emotional thing, but it's business, like you said. But you guys can already tell are going to handle it with grace, transparency, and honesty, which I think are three critical pieces of maintaining what you have in the stressful time of a transition. So Dan, Kevin, thank you again for your time. Dan, you've got a lot on your plate. It's been great to hear your perspectives and share your story thus far. I would love to have you on again. So appreciate your time today.
No, this was honestly our pleasure. And if there's anybody that can be helped by any of the advice we give, that would be wonderful. And again, we look forward to speaking with you again.
Absolutely. Team, another note, there's a lot of conversation today about education and CE, and we cannot stress enough. I know our podcast is about transition and we talk a lot about the business pieces, but as Dan and Kevin spoke about today, the clinical component and the foundation that you build is the most important component of making sure that what you build from a business perspective is successful. And Spear Education provides several workshops, seminars, virtual learning options to help you as a dentist as you thrive in your career. Kane Waters and Spear have collaborated, and they're actually releasing an associate ebook, which is going to provide actionable blueprint for like investing in yourself and professional growth and kind of merging both the clinical and professional sides. And so be sure to take advantage of those great resources and seek out that CE. As Kevin said, that's the one thing he would do earlier in his career and professional career. And so I think that heed his advice and take part in that. So, all right, team, that's all we have for today. Thank you for joining us on episode 131 of Transition Talk. Again, if you haven't already, be sure to go check out episode 130. You might have been confused, but there's another one, so go listen to hear more about their associateship phase and the family component. As always, make sure to share the transition love with those who may not know of us yet. And of course, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Until next time.